Is that your name, girl? Hello, my name is Ben Seidman, and thank you for purchasing my DVD. I really like performing this trick a lot. I do it on stage, and it gets a great reaction from everyone. It packs small, it plays big, it's not too difficult to perform, it's a great trick all around. The idea of throwing a deck of cards into the air and catching the selection is certainly not my own. It goes back a long time. Hoffman, in Modern Magic, 1876, was the first citation I could find. Hoffman describes on page 63, palming a playing card, throwing the deck into the air, reaching into the cards as they fell, and grabbing the selection. Hoffman used a long card in this routine. The name of it was a card having been chosen and returned to the pack, shuffled to produce the chosen card instantly in various ways. He always had the best titles. It's my understanding that this trick goes back earlier than Hoffman, but I couldn't find the exact source. In The Expert at the Card Table, 1902, Erdnase describes the catching of two selections. The selections are not palmed. In this case, the deck is thrown into the air, the selections are retained from the top and bottom of the deck, and the hand is thrust into the fallen cards to produce the two fallen cards. Since then, a number of very talented magicians have put their own versions of this classic effect in print. Richard Kaufman, in Card Magic in 1979, published Karate Card. He throws the deck into the air and impales the selection on his finger. Kaufman also describes Ken Krizel's handling that does not use a palm. A little bit later, in 1991, John Carney, in Cornucopia, published Natural Selection, which is a phenomenal version of this trick. If you don't know John Carney's work, you should. Carney's version is also a barehanded method. I believe he uses his more in close-up environments. My handling of this effect came from a desire to perform the routine on stage, without any tables nearby, and to show my hands completely empty before I catch the selection. After trying numerous prototypes and many different handlings, I finally settled on this one. My handling of this effect is essentially a holdout. The holdout was said to be popularized by Jack Miller, and I learned a lot more about holdouts reading a book called Holdout Miracles by Ed Mitchell. The holdout goes back over 100 years and was originally used by gambling cheats. One version of the holdout was invented by Jay Keplinger. He was a San Francisco gambler, and an illustration of this holdout appears in the rare book Sharps and Flats by John Neville Maskelyne. To date, the best and most impressive holdout I've ever seen is the Fitch-Kohler holdout system. It's fantastic if you're interested in holdout work. However, the simple setup described within this DVD is perfect for delivering a card into a previously empty hand. This is what you get in the DVD. It is two safety pins, which are stuck onto a magnet. So those are the safety pins. And then there's a magnet which holds everything together. You can just pull that off. There's a piece of elastic, and there is monofilament 4-pound fishing line is what this is wrapped around the playing card. Now this stuff, there's plenty to make a couple of gimmicks, but eventually if you want to replace your gimmicks and make new ones, you will want 4-pound monofilament fishing line. So that's this stuff. The elastic that we're going to use is just ordinary strip elastic. It is 3/4 of an inch wide, and yeah, it's just elastic. These are two safety pins, and the magnets, lastly, here's what you need to know about them. There are 3 of them. They're all stuck together, so you just slide them apart, and you get 3 magnets. 2 of them are the same thickness. They're very, very thin, and then you have one that's just a little bit thicker. Now these magnets are very strong, as you can see, but that's very important. And now I'll show you how to make the gimmick. To make the gimmick, you will need a few household items. You'll need 2 playing cards. One of these should be a face card. Doesn't matter what the other one is. What does matter is that the back design of these cards match the back design of the deck of cards you will use for the trick. So those 2 playing cards. You will also need a needle and a thread. Doesn't matter what color the thread is, it won't ever be seen, but you're going to do a little bit of sewing. So a needle and thread. You need 2 different types of glue. You need crazy glue, and you also need rubber cement. So the other option, besides the rubber cement, is something which is called spray adhesive 3M Super 77. This stuff is super powerful and isn't necessary, but if you want your gimmick to hold together really tightly, you can use the spray adhesive instead of the rubber cement. The advantage, however, of using rubber cement is when you want to replace the gimmick and take these two cards apart, which will be glued together, it's much easier to take them apart if you use rubber cement. So either way, it's up to you. Let's get started. So you know what you're about to make. There are two gimmicks. One of them will be an elastic band with a magnet sewed in it. So that's what that is. That's an elastic armband. And also, you have the playing card attached to the fishing line, and if you follow the fishing line down to the end are the two safety pins. So here's the card attached to the safety pins, and that's one gimmick. The other one is the elastic armband. Here's how to make all of that. To begin, you will want a piece of newspaper or magazine or scrap paper or something to rubber cement on so you don't get your table dirty. You'll need the two playing cards and the rubber cement. What you do is you will rubber cement the back of the face card and the front of the indifferent card. And go out to the edges. I start in the middle and brush outwards towards the edges. That way it doesn't get any rubber cement on the other side, but it covers everything on the card till the very edges. Like that. So that's one. And now two. Use a little bit more. And rubber cement the back of the face card. So now that you've waited for the rubber cement to dry, you take one of the thin magnets, make sure that there aren't any other magnets stuck to it. It's one of the two thin ones, and you place it into the middle of the card like that. And that will stick on the middle of the indifferent card right there. Now you take the fishing line, the monofilament, and you will tie a knot right there, right near the end. So you just tie a simple knot right there. And to be on the safe side, I usually tie one knot right next to that first one. So there's the first knot right there. Kind of hard to see, but it's just a simple knot. Shouldn't have any trouble with this. Tie the next knot right sort of next to the first one, like that. So now you have two knots. I don't know if you could see them. One's here, and the next one's there. So once you've tied two knots next to each other in the fishing line, you're just going to push that fishing line down onto the sticky card, like that. And if you press it down, it'll just sort of stay in place. Now remember, you tied two knots in the fishing line. You want the outermost one, the one that is closest to the rest of the length of the fishing line, to go right about where the club is. And the other one can go just further up in the card, closer to the magnet. Another detail you want to keep in mind is that the fishing line should be leaving the card right about the middle, right there. Now you want that to stay in place, so here's where the crazy glue comes in. Take a drop of crazy glue and put it in a couple of places on the monofilament, including where the knots are, like that. And that's eventually going to keep the monofilament from going anywhere, but you want to let that dry. And also, we need our paper here again so we don't get the table dirty. Like that. You're going to put one more drop of super glue on the monofilament right on the edge of the card, right there. Okay, the fishing line has been glued in place. It is now attached, and you have the two cards that are sticky on these two sides, and now what you do is you press these two together, making them one solid card. To do this, you want to line them up carefully, because once these two touch each other, they're going to be very, very hard to get them apart, so be very careful as you line the cards up. I start at one end and slowly press the two cards together, like that. And once they're together, you want to just tug along the edges like this, pressing them together and making sure there aren't any air gaps or air bubbles. To complete the card gimmick, you find the other end of the monofilament, and you take that end and you thread that through the circle and a safety pin. You want the safety pin just sort of hanging like that so it can slide. So once you've done that, you let that safety pin drop all the way to the card, and it will attach itself to the card because the magnet is inside the card. It's important to measure the length of the monofilament and adjust it to fit your body. Here's how you do that. Loop the card over your thumb like that, so it's up against your hand, and then you will extend your hand out to the side as far as it goes, like that, and you stretch the monofilament across your body. You're going to cut it right about where your nipple is, opposite from the card. So your monofilament is the appropriate length. Take the safety pin, stick the end of the safety pin through the circle on the safety pin, and make a knot. Once you've done that, I double and then triple knot it just to make sure that that safety pin isn't going to move at all. Okay, there you have it. You now have the card attached to the monofilament with the safety pin at the other end and the other safety pin which can travel along the line. Now it's time to make your magnetic armband. Take the piece of elastic and you're going to wrap it around your forearm just a bit below the elbow. I put mine right about there. So you have your elastic cut, and it makes the armband like this, and you have a little bit of elastic that's overlapped. That's important. Now I always put a safety pin through the band just to make sure that I measured it correctly. And this is perfect for me. Take your needle and thread, pull off a long piece of thread, thread your needle, tie a knot at the other end of the thread, and I cut off the excess thread just a ½ inch past the knot. The first step is to sew the elastic together along this line. So simply sew up and down through the elastic. This doesn't have to be beautiful. It's never going to be seen by the audience. So it's just important to make sure that it's sewn tightly so it's not going to move. So that is the stitch right there. Next, it's important to take your magnet now get the bigger, the thicker of the 3 magnets, and also your double stick tape. Put a little piece of double stick tape on each side of the magnet. And when you sew the magnet inside of the elastic, the double stick tape just makes it easier for the magnet to stay in place. You're going to put the magnet underneath this little flap of elastic, and you're going to sew around it so it gets sewn right into this little pocket right here. So, take the thick magnet, put it in between the 2 pieces of elastic, so it's in the middle, right there, and put the flap down and stick it inside. Now you will use your needle and thread to sew around the magnet like that. Now there's only a little bit of room on either side of the elastic. That's fine. You just have to sew out to the edges. So I continue right here. And as I get closer, I just sew around the magnet like that. So it's right in there, and I'm continuing to sew around the magnet. Once I've sewn in a circle all the way around the magnet, I always quickly go over a few more spots just to make sure that it won't go anywhere. And I sew back around, but not as carefully and not in as many holes. Just enough to make sure that that magnet isn't going anywhere. And when you're done, tie a knot by pushing the needle through, but leaving a little loop of thread. Push the needle back up through the elastic and push the needle through that loop of thread a couple of times. I always knot it once, and then again put the needle through the loop of thread one more time, and double knot it. Once you've sewn the magnet inside and tied the thread in place so it's not going to unravel, you can cut off the remaining thread and your armband is ready. Here's the setup if you're wearing a short sleeve shirt under your jacket. Take the armband that you made and put it on your arm. You want the magnet oriented so that it's facing the inside of your arm, like that. So if you bend your arm like this, the magnet should touch your bicep. So you want it facing outward. It's right there on me. So that's where the armband goes. Now you take your card gimmick and for the time being, stick that to the magnet. That'll just hang out there. And you want to make sure your armband is positioned right. If you bend your arm in and the card wants to fall off, that means you need to put it a little bit closer to your wrist. That way you can bend your arm without it going anywhere. That's important. Locate the two safety pins. One of them is static. It's tied to the other end of the fishing line. The other one just slides along the line like that. That's the one that you want to deal with. Take that pin, and you will pin that safety pin to the shirt right above your shoulder, right there. Okay? Now do this carefully. I'm not responsible if you stab yourself. Pinch a little bit of your shirt, and put the safety pin in, and close it. Now you have the card with the line traveling to your shoulder and then straight down. The last safety pin is pinned directly underneath the shoulder one, and here's how to figure out the correct distance. Take the card off the magnet, loop it over your thumb, and let it hang. Now take the other safety pin and pull until the card goes up to your hand. Like that. Extend your hand all the way out, like this. When your hand is extended all the way out, that is the position that you want to pin the second safety pin. Pinch a little bit of your shirt, and very carefully stick the safety pin through. So now you're hooked up. When you extend your arm all of the way, the card should go right against your palm like that. If it's too tight and it goes up to your palm like that, before you've extended your arm all the way, you need to give yourself a little more slack here. If you extend your arm all the way and it's still hanging, that means you've got too much slack. Move the second safety pin downwards just a little bit. You want that perfect balance where when you extend your arm, the card goes right into your hand, like that. Now it's time to put on your jacket. Make sure that the card is stuck to the wristband with the magnets, and very carefully put that arm into your jacket. You do this carefully because if you knock the card too hard, it could fall down. Put your other arm through. Make sure the card is still there. You can feel it right there. And you're ready to go. So now you're ready to perform. The card is attached to the wristband inside the sleeve right here, and it stays there attached to the magnet until you're ready to perform the effect. Now you can talk, you can gesture, you can go through all of your other effects. The card will just stay in the sleeve. Just be conscious that it's there and make sure you don't knock your sleeve or brush up against it too hard, because then it'll fall out. But otherwise, the card just stays right there in the sleeve and you're ready to perform the effect. This is the setup if you want to perform catch while wearing a long sleeve dress shirt or button-down shirt under your jacket. The wristband goes on in the same place. I'm wearing the wristband under my shirt right here. You can even see it right there. And the magnet, of course, is right here, facing out. Now the first thing you want to do when you put on your button-down shirt is roll back your sleeves. And you roll them back once. This does two things. One, it puts the button underneath, and that way there's no chance that the card can get caught on the button as it's trying to come out of your sleeve. And two, it forms a little pocket that the card will sit in. I'll explain that in just a second. There are two different ways to keep the card in resting position before you start the effect. One of them is just like the short sleeve method. You let it stick to the magnet and the card stays in position. The other way is to take the card and tuck it inside of this little pocket that you made by rolling your sleeve back. The nice thing about setting the card up this way is you don't have to worry about bumping your sleeve. When the card is in this position, it's not going anywhere until you want it to. Find the two safety pins. One of them is tied onto the monofilament, the other one slides on the line like that. That's the first one you're going to deal with, is the one that slides. Take that safety pin, and that gets pinned to your shirt right here, right at the top of your shoulder. When you're doing this, be very careful that you don't poke yourself. Just take a little bit of the shirt, pull it away from you, stick the pin through, and close the safety pin. So the safety pin is right here. The card is either in my sleeve or attached to the magnet. And the other safety pin gets pinned below the pin on your shoulder. Here's how to figure out exactly where you pin that. Take the card, loop it over your hand like that, extend your hand all of the way, pull tight with the safety pin. When you do that, it brings the card up to your hand, and when you pull tight, that is exactly where you pin the second safety pin. For me, it's right here. Again, pinch a little bit of your shirt away from you so you don't poke yourself. Stick the safety pin through and close it. Now you check to make sure you have the right amount of slack by extending your arm with the card looped around your thumb like that. If you extend your arm all the way and the card sits straight up against your palm, then you pinned it correctly. If the card is tight up against your hand before you've extended your arm all of the way, then you need to adjust the second safety pin, giving yourself a little more slack. That's perfect, because when I extend my arm, the card goes right into my hand. Now you're ready to put your jacket on. Tuck the card back into your sleeve or stick it to the magnet, it's up to you, and put your jacket on. If the card is tucked into your sleeve, one of the benefits is that it's very hard for it to move anywhere. You don't have to worry about knocking it off the magnet as you perform. Gravity keeps it held into that pocket. It won't go anywhere. When you're ready to start the trick, you have to pull the card out. Well, how do you do that? Inside your jacket you have two safety pins. One pinned on your shoulder and one pinned by your ribs right here. There's a length of thread that goes in between them. Reach into your jacket and feel where that thread is. At any point, if you reach in and you pull down on that thread, that pulley system will lift the card out of your sleeve. So as soon as I pull down here, I feel the card traveling up my sleeve like this. That's how you disengage it and get ready to perform. Here's the exposed view. This is what happens underneath the jacket. The card is in the pocket. Your hand reaches into the jacket, your thumb links onto that loop of thread and pulls down. When it pulls down, it pulls up the card. It will attach to the magnet, and then you knock it with your hand and it falls down into your hand. Of course, with the jacket, the card is guided and it goes straight down into your hand. When you're ready to begin the effect, you need to disengage the two magnets so the card falls from inside the jacket down into your hand. I do this by just lightly brushing my sleeve. In that action, my thumb feels where the top of the card is and just gives a little push. In that action, I push the card off the magnet, like that. And that just looks like that. I do that as I talk. Now, the card is loose in the sleeve. If you give a couple of seconds to let gravity do its work, the card will travel down the sleeve into your hand. You might find that you have trouble getting the card out of the sleeve into the hand. This can happen for a couple reasons. If you're wearing a long sleeve shirt under your jacket, sometimes the card will get caught on it as you're waiting for gravity to let it fall out. So here's one other way to do it that's a little more surefire and might be easier for some people. Instead of knocking the sleeve in a gesture, your other hand just simply reaches into your sleeve, pinches the card, you can feel it as soon as you reach in, pinches with these two fingers, and pulls the card out. Once the card is in your hand, loop the fishing line over the thumb, so the card's like that, and take the card and push it back into the sleeve, like that. Now, when you extend your arm, the card will come out of the sleeve into your hand, like that. And that is the basics of the trick. Of course, that setup would look pretty obvious, so I will show you how to get set up in front of the audience in the context of the routine. Whenever I perform catch, I always corner short the force card. I shave a little bit off the corners on diagonal sides of the card. That way, no matter where the card is in the deck, I can cut to it easily. Here's how you corner short a card if you're not familiar. Take scissors, and I'm left-handed, so I short these two ends. I just cut a sliver off of the corner like this. But I always straighten out the corner. And since I did this one, I will also do the opposite corner right there. Just a little bit is all you need. Once you have made the short card, if you put it into the deck, like that, all you have to do is riffle up on the corner of the deck. If you just riffle like this, did you hear that snap? That's exactly where the card is. Right there. And so it's very easy to cut to. So the way you handle this is the deck is in dealer's grip, just like that. You riffle up like that, and then you cut at the force card. Again, if the King of Hearts is in the middle of the deck, all I have to do is riffle up the back, and I can feel and hear exactly where the force card is. Here's one simple way to force a card. Have the selection on top, cut it to the middle, and hold a break. Here's the card that you're forcing. This packet goes on top, and you hold a break right there. Now riffle your thumb alongside of the deck, and have your spectator call stop. Wherever they say stop, you cut at the break, and you show them the card that they stopped you at, supposedly, which is, of course, your force card. So, riffle your thumb down the deck, have the spectator say stop. When they say stop, cut at the break, let them take the playing card, and of course, that is the King of Hearts, the one that you're forcing. When I perform this routine, it's very important to me that the audience doesn't see the duplicate card that's left on the stage. There is a chance when you throw the cards up into the air that the King of Hearts, or whatever card you're using, will land face up on the ground. And you don't want someone seeing that, especially when you're standing there triumphantly holding your duplicate card. So here's what I do. I use the magician's best friend, double stick tape. I use double stick tape to vanish the selection. Of course, I don't mean vanish, I mean hide. As soon as the spectator returns the force card back into the deck, it adheres to another playing card. They can shuffle them all they want, and when the cards are sprung into the air, no one will ever find the duplicate. I take a piece of tape, about this big, and I put it onto the back of one of the playing cards, like that. Now, as soon as the force card is set on top of the sticky card and pressed down, now they're stuck together, and if the spectator was to look through the entire deck, they wouldn't find the force card. Of course, at any time, to unstickerize the two cards, you just have to pull the double stick tape apart, and you have your force card. I have the Queen of Hearts, and I've shorted these two corners right here. I also have an indifferent card with a piece of double stick tape on the back, and I have the deck. The force card that is corner short goes on top of the deck. On top of that goes the indifferent card with the double stick tape, and the whole deck goes into the box. There are two different ways to get set up during the context of the routine. When I say set up, I mean the card in your sleeve has to come out of the sleeve, get looped around the thumb, and go back into the sleeve. That way you're set up. So here's one way to do it. Force the card on your spectator in whatever method you'd like. So they've just taken the selected card. You have it returned to the deck. You hand them the deck of cards, and you ask the spectator to shuffle up the cards. During this, you turn around because you don't want to see the card. So I'll say, so take whichever one you'd like. Good. Look at it. Memorize it. Show it to the audience. I won't look. Excellent. And drop it back into the deck and take the cards and shuffle them back up. I won't even look. Give them a good shuffle. Now, when I do that, I turn away from the audience, and I supposedly turn away so that I can't see where they're putting the card. But here's what happens. Retrieve, thumb, reverse, replace. That's retrieve the card, put your thumb around the thread, reverse the card, and replace it in your sleeve. Retrieve, thumb, reverse, replace. Here's how it looks. Retrieve, thumb, reverse, replace. Retrieve, extend the arm as you thumb, reverse, and replace. So, the card is forced. You hand the cards back to the spectator so they can shuffle their card back into the deck. When you turn around, this is what happens. You retrieve the card, loop it around your thumb, you reverse the card, you stretch the line out a little bit more to give you some extra slack, and you replace the card back into your sleeve. When you do this, it's important to engage the magnet in the card with the magnet and the wristband. The reason you want to do that is once it's set, you can move your hands around and the card won't start to creep out of your sleeve before you want it to. At this point, you can ask for the cards back, take the cards from your spectator, and put them directly into the hand that has the setup. That way, you can hold the cards and still talk and still gesture, thank your spectator, and they can go back to their seat. Of course, you don't have to dismiss your spectator and send them back to their seat. However, I prefer to do this when I perform this routine because that gives me a chance to clear the stage, so one, they don't get hit with playing cards, but two, more importantly, it gives me a chance to build some suspense, and when I catch the card on stage, I have that moment all to myself with all the focus on me, and the audience member who I choose is usually from the front row. Then they react because they see the card, and I don't have to show it this way and then turn to the audience. I catch the card and just show it forward. This is the alternative setup if you don't want to turn your back when the spectator is on stage. You want the spade upside down, so in other words, the flap is on the bottom, and you want the spade of the cards pointing out. So when they go into my pocket, they go into my pocket like this. To the spectators, it just looks like you reach into your pocket and take the deck of cards out. Get the card out of your sleeve and into your hand, either by brushing your sleeve and knocking it down, or bringing your hands together casually. And when your hands are together, your fingers extend into the sleeve and pull the card out into your hand. Once you have retrieved the card, reach your hand into your jacket, into your pocket, and retrieve the deck, like so. If this is the deck in your pocket, you reach the palm card in front of it and pull them out together, like this. When you remove the deck, it's alright if they see a flash of this card, they will only see the same color as the box. Of course, I'm using a blue card with a red box so you can see it, but otherwise, when you remove them together, that will go unnoticed. Now, grip the deck in biddle grip, and this thumb loops around the thread as you turn the deck upside down. So it looks like this. Once you have looped the fishing line over your thumb and turn the deck upside down, in one continued action, you pull open the flap and dump the cards out of the box. When done up to speed, it doesn't look like anything fishy has happened. You just reach into your pocket, remove a deck of cards, and take them out of the box. Again, here's the action. The hand with the palm card reaches into the jacket, goes behind the deck, you bring them out together, you reverse the cards to open the flap, and dump the cards out. Once the cards have been taken out of the deck, you hand them to your spectator to shuffle. The box goes into your outside jacket pocket, and as you do that, the palmed card is sleeved, pushed back into the sleeve with one hand. It's hard to do it slowly, but it's pushed back in like that, while my hand is down here at my side, and as I turn towards the spectator and say, yeah, just keep shuffling them, I give the card an extra little push to make sure that it engages with the magnet in my sleeve. Once the card is safely engaged in the magnet, I ask the spectator for the cards back. They hand them to me. I take the cards and I cut to the short card, and I simply force the selection on the spectator. The difficult part about using this setup is that now you have a card in your sleeve with it looped around your thumb, and you have to force the card without the card in the sleeve popping out. For that very reason, when I do use this method to set up, where I take the box out of my pocket, take out the cards, and get the cards set that way, I force the card a little differently. This is how I typically do it. Instead of having the card, the force card on top, holding a break, riffling, and then giving them the card like this, I start with the card on the bottom. The reason for this is that if I riffle, they say stop, I cut at the break, now I can show them their card. The reason I want to do this as opposed to thumb off the next card is that involves reaching this arm towards the spectator, which could cause the card in my sleeve to move. But if I riffle and cut and show them the card like this, Then drop it onto the deck, squeeze the double stick tape, and let them shuffle. That way, this arm can stay closer to the body. It's therefore safer. To begin, remove the deck of cards from the box. I always pinch the entire deck and pull to make sure that the sticky card doesn't get stuck inside of the box. Next, I lift up on a single card, that's the indifferent sticky card, and I get a break under it. Now my break is much smaller than this, I'm just letting it be pretty big so you can see it on camera. I now cut half the deck on top of that card and continue to hold the break. So, here is the indifferent card with the sticky tape on the back of it, and here is the force card. Again, from the beginning, the cards are removed from the box, I get a break, and I cut half the deck above that break. Now, I riffle down the cards, ask the spectators to say stop, they stop me, I cut at the break, and give them the force card, that's the King of Hearts. I turn around so I can't see what it is, and I let them show the force card to the audience. While this is happening, I'm still holding a break here, and I make sure that the sticky card isn't stuck to the card above it. So occasionally, when I cut to it, I'll feel that they're stuck together, and I just slide them apart with my fingers like this. Now I turn around and I hold that break above the sticky card, like that. So when I turn around, they can return the card to the deck. They put the force card back on the sticky tape. I drop the other half of the cards on top, square them up, and I hand them to the spectator. In the action of handing them to the spectator, I'm pinching on top and on bottom, making sure that the force card is sticking to the sticky tape. You've just caught the selection, what do you do now? Your hand is extended, holding the card. Now you don't want to just move your hand back and relax, because there's a chance that the fishing line going into your jacket will buckle, and they can see the line. So as soon as you want to bring your hand back, here's what you do. Your other hand grips the playing card for a second. These fingers go on top of the thread as you turn the card upwards, and you re-grip the card here. That takes away all of the extra slack. From the front, it looks like this. And now it's done. Now I can pull my hand inward without all the slack popping out. I display the card just a little bit more in this position before my other hand takes the card, takes my hand out from the thread, and re-grips the card. I do this in a way so that the thread, where it attaches to the card, is pointing towards my sleeve. Of course, I don't do all of this with the card in this position up here. This happens after I've displayed the card during the applause. I thank everyone. That's when my hands casually drop, and I get the card in position to go back into my sleeve. Remember, in your jacket you have two safety pins, one here, and in between them is a line of thread. Now the pulley system works such that if you grab the length of thread and you pull down, that pulls the card back into your sleeve. The card is right here. It's positioned so that part of it is inside of the sleeve. I reach into my jacket and pull down, and when I pull down, the card goes into my sleeve. Here's an important note. You have to be conscious of which way the card is oriented when it sticks to the wristband, like that. Now, it can sort of stick on the side facing the other direction, but it's not very strong at all. My wristband is such that the card is face down. Remember this, because as you sleeve the card and pull down right here, if you have the card oriented the wrong way, it won't want to stick to the magnet very easily. Once you pull the card into your sleeve, one of two things will happen. One, as the card goes into your sleeve, it will stick to the magnet, and two, it'll go past the magnet up higher in your sleeve. If it sticks to the magnet, then great, you're done. Your cleanup is over, the card will stay there for the rest of your show or your performance. You can move on with other routines if you'd like. If the card goes past the magnet up to your arm, no problem, just stop pulling. That means you pulled it a little too hard. If you let go, you can let gravity slowly take the card down. It'll work its way through your sleeve until it passes the magnet where it will attach. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out how much to pull down on the thread inside of your jacket, but if you get just the right amount, it goes right into your sleeve and attaches itself to the magnet. Now, it's also important to find a justification for reaching your hand into your jacket. So I usually pull down the thread and then remove something from my breast pocket to move into the next routine. If you're working out of a case, here's a great way to clean up. You've just caught the card. You transfer it for a second so you can do the move to pick up the extra slack as you show it around. This is during the applause. Again, you take it in your other hand and grasp the card here, which takes the thread out from being wrapped around your thumb. As I turn to go to my case, it looks like I just take the card and drop it into my case. Here's what really happens. As I turn away, I push the card slightly into my sleeve, just a hair, and as I put the card into the case, my hand reaches in, pulls on the thread, and pulls the card up into my sleeve. It's now right here. Again, I've caught the card. I do the move to show it, take away the slack, take my hand out from the thread, turn towards the case, start to sleeve the card. As I put it into the case, I just reach into my jacket, pull down on the thread, and it pulls the card right into my sleeve. I've just performed catch. It's in my fingers. I relax a sec, do the move to take up the slack, show it all around. Thank you. It goes into my hand. As I turn away, I reach into my jacket, I grab the thread, and as the card goes into the case, it goes right back up and sticks to the magnet in my sleeve. Here's a cleanup I developed for times when I'm not working out of a case. It requires a permanent marker in your inside jacket pocket, and you also need a duplicate of the catch card inside of your outer jacket pocket. So, you've just performed catch, you're here, I immediately take the slack out so I can show the card comfortably. Under the applause, I pull my hand out of the fishing line and place the card into my hand like this, and it drops to my side. At this point, I address the spectator, and when I'm doing this without a case, I always pick a spectator who's to my right. She's house left, my stage right. Let's say her name is Sally. So, I'm here, take the slack out, thank you, put it in my hand, and I say, Sally, I have a question. Would you like me to autograph your card for you? Doesn't matter, you're getting it anyway. All the cards are on the ground, I can't use the deck any longer. Here you go, enjoy that! And then I hand that to her, and we're done. This is what happens. Remember, the pen is here, and the duplicate card is in my left hand pocket. Once the card is here, I drop my hand to my side and stick the back half of the card into my sleeve slightly, so it's ready to be pulled into the sleeve. This hand comes out. As I address her, it instantly comes into the jacket. I pull down, which pulls the catch card into my sleeve. Both hands now enter these pockets. My left hand comes out first with the marker, and I say, would you like me to autograph this card? And my right hand now comes out with the duplicate card. It's sort of a timing thing. To make it work, it has to look like you're holding the card. You address her. You're searching for a pen. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Write your name, and there you go. The other option is not doing a cleanup at all. If you use catch as your closer on stage, then there's no cleanup. You simply catch the card, you show it all around, you get your applause, you bow, and you run off stage. Then you don't have to deal with getting this back into your sleeve. However, if you give it some practice with the methods I just described into the case and into the pocket, you'll find that cleaning up for catch is actually pretty easy. If I perform this effect by forcing the card on the spectator using the reverse fan method, here's how I set up. I actually corner short the other corners of the force card. The reason for this is instead of riffling up, I'm going to riffle down. So, I corner short, in this case, the two corners where the pips are. Here's my setup. The card with the sticky tape on it goes on top of the deck. On top of that goes the force card, and they're stuck together. Now these cards go into the box. The box gets oriented correctly and goes into my breast pocket. I invite a spectator on stage. I knock the card off the magnet as I'm talking. I retrieve the playing card. It's now here. I reach my hand into my pocket. I retrieve the deck of cards. I do the move as I open up the deck. I hand the spectator the deck of cards, and I say, and please give those a shuffle. Now, I gesture like this for a reason. The reason is, if they do a riffle shuffle, there's always a chance that another card could get trapped in between the force card and the card with the double stick tape on it. So if they shuffle them like this, do an overhand shuffle as they call it, then they're safe. Now the spectator is shuffling the cards, so when you take back the deck, you're not going to know exactly where the force card is. So it immediately goes into dealer's grip of the hand that is rigged. The card's in my sleeve right now. I keep my arm close to my body so as not to let the card fall out of the sleeve prematurely. I riffle down the deck, and I'm riffling downward with my thumb. I hear the click, and exactly where I hear the click, that is where I cut. And when I cut, I hear the double stick tape and the force card separate. Now the double stick tape is on top and the force card is underneath. I take the cards back from the spectator. They go into the hand, which has the setup. I riffle down. I feel the click. I cut at the click, which unsticks the double stick tape and leaves the force card on the bottom. At this point, I reverse fan the cards, keeping my arm close to my body so the card in my sleeve doesn't pop out, and I turn to the spectator and show him the deck. Now Jeremy, I want you to look at the deck, but I want you to just see one card, okay? Keep it in mind, no matter what, don't forget it. And Jeremy, you shuffled the cards, correct? Yes? You shuffled them? Good. So ostensibly, you could be thinking of any one card in the deck, right? Had you shuffled the deck one more time, you might be thinking of a different card. Good. Keep it in mind. I want you to take the deck one more time and shuffle your card back into the deck. So here are the important details. I reverse fan the cards, turn to Jeremy as I say the scripting. Now as I turn back towards the audience, here's what happens. My finger of my other hand goes here and closes the fan, and one continued action grabs the deck. I push the bottom card, which is the force card, into my left hand, do a side steal with it, and drop it on top of the deck. In that same action, I readjust and fan the cards the other direction, so now the pips are showing. It all looks like this. So this is what the spectator sees. He's asked to look at the cards, but to just see one, keep it in mind, don't forget it no matter what. As I close the fan and turn around, I side steal the bottom card, put it on top, and fan the cards towards the audience as I'm talking. I also gesture towards the bottom card, so he thinks that the audience knows which card I'm talking about. Of course they don't. I can now close the deck, give the deck one more little pinch to make sure that the forced card is hidden beneath the double stick tape card, hand it to the spectator, and he can shuffle it one more time. Marissa?
Yeah.
I want you to look at the whole deck, but I just want you to see one card. Okay, whatever it is, remember it, and don't forget it. Okay. And you shuffle the cards, yes?
Yes.
So ostensibly, you could be thinking of any one card in the deck, is that correct? Take the deck and give them a shuffle, and keep that card in mind. Don't tell me what it is yet, but think about it. If you want to perform the holdout version of catch in a surrounded environment, like say you're street performing or you're performing in a theater that's theater of the round, you have to take advantage of the case. Whatever briefcase or box you're working out of that you're taking props out of on stage. Right now I'm using a camera case to fill in for my briefcase, but any receptacle does the trick. So I've just forced the selection on the spectator. They're memorizing it right now. Meanwhile, I use my thumb to brush my sleeve and knock the card off of the magnet right here in my sleeve. I have them return the card into the deck. I squeeze the deck, engaging the double stick tape, and I hand them the deck of cards. I ask them to give the cards a shuffle. I turn towards my case, and I now remove a ping pong paddle, or a tennis racket, or a tray, or any large flat surface. I like to use a tennis racket just because it's a funny moment. In a moment, you're going to have the spectator drop the cards on the tennis racket and spread them around. I now hold the tennis racket in one hand. My hand is empty. I throw the cards into the air with the racket, reach through the air, and grab the card. Now the tennis racket serves two purposes. One, it's a fun little plot device, and it adds a little bit more production value to the show, because you've got a larger object that you're throwing the cards into the air with. But two, it gives you a reason to go into your case. Now, if you don't want to use a tennis racket or a tray, that's fine. You just need some reason to turn around and go to your case. During all of this, the card has been sitting right here, because it's just barely fallen out of the sleeve. I hand the cards back to her to shuffle. I turn around, this hand goes into the case, and while my hands are both in the case, I quickly loop the card around my thumb and push it back into my sleeve onto the magnet, just as I would in the other methods. Of course, I come out of the case with whatever object I'm using to spread the cards around on, and now I'm set to go. I'm ready to have the cards thrown into the air and catch the playing card. Of course, you don't need to use a tennis racket or a tray. You just need some excuse to go into your case to take something out. Here's a method to perform catch in short sleeves. You can also use this method with a sign card if you'd like. Now you make up the gimmick the exact same way as you would with the other version of catch, except you leave out the fishing line completely. In other words, this is just two playing cards glued together with a magnet in the middle, but there's no string attached. Also, you need a piece of metal that has a big surface area but can fit in your back pocket. Here's what I use. It's the top of a tin of playing cards. It's just a piece of metal that's magnetic. Really, you can use anything that fits in your pocket and is magnetic. You can even use the magnets included, but I find that a bigger piece of metal is easier to stick the card to without a lot of effort. Here's your setup for this short sleeve method. You need your magnetic card on top of the deck. You also need your other magnetic piece in your back pocket. I'm left-handed, so I put it in my right back pocket, and the card can be stuck right there very easily. To start the routine, the card is forced, using whatever method you like. They look at the selection and memorize it. If you'd like, they can write their name on the card. They can sign it if you have a permanent marker. It's not necessary, but if you like things being signed, it can be done. Don't worry about the fact that there's a magnet inside of here. I've not once had a spectator say to me, "Oh, what's that bump in the middle of the card?" It'll go completely unnoticed. So once they sign their name on it, shuffle the card into the deck, controlling it whatever way you'd like. I keep it on top like this. And at this point the spectator is standing to my right. The card is on top, ready to be loaded. Here's the choreography. Now I want to thank you for your help. Thanks for coming up on stage. You can sit down now, go home, go away. You can say whatever you want, but basically you turn to the spectator, your hands drop to your sides for a moment, you thank him, you shake his hand, and you send him off. During that process, here's what happens. The magnetic card is controlled on top during the shuffle. My hands drop to my sides. As I turn towards him, my hand goes behind me for a moment, and the card, which is on top of the deck, simply touches to my back pocket and sticks there. Now I want to thank you for your help. Thanks for coming up on stage. Here are the actions. You spring the cards into the air, like that, with one hand. As the cards are sprung into the air, my hand drops to my side, grabs the card, and thrusts my arm forward as if I caught the card. It's important that you thrust your arm into the spring of cards. As soon as I start to spring the cards, my right hand goes down, grabs the card, and brings it forward into the spring of cards. And it looks a little something like this. If you want to perform this effect impromptu, it's best to use one of the classic palming methods, such as the method listed in Hoffman Modern Magic on page 63. I'm including a couple of palming methods here for completeness, so you have some options if you want to do this trick without any setup. Begin by borrowing a deck of cards, having a spectator select a card. Now it doesn't matter which card they select, it doesn't have to be forced. Once they select it, the card goes back into the deck. You give them a shuffle, mix them up, and while I'm doing this, I'm controlling their card, controlling it on top. If you want, you can let the spectator shuffle the cards. To do this, you classic palm the card that you've been controlling, hand the deck to the spectators, let them shuffle them up, take the cards back, do a palm replacement, so you can again show your hands empty before you do the move. There are a few ways to palm the card during the context of the routine if you want to use the classic palm. My selection's on top. I control it with a shuffle. I palm the card in my hand as I turn to the side. Of course, my hand is tilted like this, so no one sees this. So I turn to the side. I take the deck, turn it 90 degrees towards me, re-grip the cards in the hand that has the card that's palmed, and put the cards now in the other hand in preparation to spring them. Up to speed, I control the selection on top. It's right there. I re-grip the deck like that, and now I'm ready to go. Of course, all that is left now is to bring the palmed card to your fingertips as if you caught it. Like that. The card is in classic palm. My index finger bends behind the card, buckles the card, and lets it snap off of my palm. Now I'm holding the card by these two fingers, and I can re-grip it with my thumb. The other method to classic palm the card in preparation to grab it out of the falling playing cards is also very classic. As you spring the cards into the air, you simply retain that top card. So the card is controlled on top. You spring the cards into the air. It's hard to do it slowly, but you simply hold on to that bottom card. It looks like this. The selection can also be snatched out of the air using a tenkai palm, like that. Here's how to get into the Tenkai palm. The card is controlled to the top. You fan the cards, show them to the audience, showing this hand empty. You come back to adjust the fan, and in that context, I've just stolen the top card in Tenkai palm. Here's how that works. You fan the cards, pause for a second so they can see your empty hand. I adjust the cards by bringing my hand over this side of the cards, and I just grip the top card like that and steal it in Tenkai. In performance, it looks like this. If I perform this routine without a gimmick, this is the handling that I use most. It's based off of a handling by Charlie Fry that he published on his first Eccentrics DVD. It's called The Card Grab. If you don't know Charlie Fry's work, you should. He's a fantastic physical comedian, juggler, and magician, and his Eccentrics DVDs all are filled with great material. Charlie controls the selection to the top, fairs the cards together, and in the act of fanning the deck, steals the selection into back palm of his other hand. Well, I loved what he did with it, but I wanted a slightly different handling, so here's what I do. The selection is controlled to the top. You cut the deck. I always cut a smaller packet from the bottom, because that goes on top of the other cards and is farrowed together. Now, I always leave a gap of cards here. You need at least 3 cards on top to make this work. I regrip the fan, or the cards rather, and I fan them out. So I have a nice pretty fan like that. I always do this, show my hand empty, and do one more fan towards the audience like this. Now, I'm facing to the left, holding the cards out, and my hand which is going to steal the card is right here. I adjust the cards here, and behind the fan, here's what's happening. My fingers push the top card of the deck up like that. My hand comes behind the fan, grabs this card, and back palms it. From the front, it looks like this. And I have the card in back palm. From the back, this is what takes place. Now that you're in this position, with a card back palmed in your hand, I show my hand empty as I talk to the audience for a second, and then I let this hand casually drop to my side, turn to the audience a bit, show them the cards, throw the fan up in the air, and as I bring my hand forward, bring the card out from back palm into my fingers like this. To spring the cards, place the cards into the hand like this, and spring. This is a method I often use for controlling a card. So the ace of spades has been selected by the spectator. I dribble some cards, have the card returned. The selection is placed right there. These cards are now dribbled offset so that the first 2 land here, the first card at least, and then I continue to dribble all in a big pile. What that allows me to do is raise my fingers here and obtain the break right in there. So as I square the cards up, I maintain the break with my pinky. And in real time, it looks like this. The 7 of hearts is placed back into the deck. I dribble the cards. I obtain a break. I now pick up at that break and overhand shuffle, leaving the selection on top. The deck is gripped right here. The pinky pushes down the corner of the card, springing it into palm position. The card is held between the thumb and the hand right here. It is held parallel to the floor, and your hand is turned away from the audience, so this is what they see. Tenkai palm. To back palm a playing card, put your index finger and pinky on either sides of the card, so you're gripping it like that. These two fingers, the middle and ring finger, open up, pushing the card into back palm. From the back it looks like this. From the front it looks like this. Well, there you go. That's my work on a card having been chosen returned to the pack shuffle to produce the chosen card instantly in various ways, as Hoffman would put it. But I hope that you've enjoyed this DVD and learned a lot. It goes without saying, but make sure that you practice a lot before you perform this. I have a great amount of fun performing this on stage, and I think you will too. Just make sure you put in your time and practice. So go out and make it happen!